I think part of the reason most of us get quite nervous at the beginning is we know that that's when we have everyone's attention. So you don't need any help to get the audience's attention at the beginning. You think, oh, I should tell a joke. Oh, I should get up and introduce myself. Oh, I should say something witty or to wake them up. No, no. Most audiences, they're already awake at the beginning. Because even though we're scientists, we cling to this hope that the next speaker will somehow be different from the last 17. Now, because your nerves are at a maximum here, I do recommend, I suggest, consider memorizing the first few sentences of your presentation. Why are they so happy at the end of your talk? Because it's the end, yeah. And they're so happy that you're done. Now let's be fair. Most of you are listening until the end, but there's just something special about the end when the speaker says, and now to conclude, everybody, the antenna go, ooh, what? Or, okay, just 2 more slides. And people sort of, yeah, if you want to wake up your audience, promise them I'm done very soon, right? So you don't need to do anything to excite people at the beginning and the end. You don't need help. I want us to focus on the middle. I call this the black hole of most talks. Because most talks, this is where you lose them. They flatline. It just becomes an endless series of slides. Now this is very, very sad, because what happens in the middle of your talk?
Main results.
The real data, right? Most audiences, well, think about when you present. Most audiences are kind of like this. If you're lucky, they're looking at you. Now, if they're really distracted, you can tell, because they're not looking at you. Yeah, they're looking at their shoes, their phone, their SMSs, their whatever. Very few cases I've had someone in the audience, they're nodding. Yeah, you're exactly right. They're so excited, they pick up the pen. What I want to say is, don't necessarily expect to get a lot of helpful feedback from the audience. At the best is maybe you'll meet their eyes. Maybe something magical will happen. But it's not. Now, the opposite extreme is true. If they're on the desk, then yeah, something's wrong, okay? Our brain has spent millions of years evolving to differentiate signal from noise, right? So potential threat to harmless background. It's sort of like, imagine you meet up with a friend you haven't seen for a long time, you meet them in a bar, you first go into the bar, it seems pretty noisy, you're a little worried, will I be able to have a conversation with my friend? You start to talk, you remember old times, everything flows. Before you know it, you don't know the noise going on, right? But then the other friend who's meeting you, they walk in and they call your name. They can't see you. Hey, John, where are you, John? And suddenly you hear your name and you look up and you see the other friend at the door. What happened? Your brain said, I'm with my friend right now. I don't need to pay attention to the noise. That's background. So it went from the cortex in the front to something else in the back. But when someone comes in and calls my name, then suddenly the background pops back into my cortex and I'm actively processing. So in other words, your audience, right, they're looking at the slides, but they may not see them because they're processing something else actively. They're listening to you, but are they really hearing you? They may be thinking about some scheme that you put on the slide. Basically, I want you to be aware of that difference between active processing and just hearing or letting it go in. So when your voice is the same, when your body is the same, when the types of slides are the same, the brain will tend to treat that. This is background. I don't need to actively process. It's not helping me. So your brain is doing everything it can to ignore active stimuli coming in because they're overloading the brain anyway, and it puts it back. So you have to constantly, almost, sort of do things to push the audience's brain to move your sounds, your voice, your slides, back into the cortex for active processing. I'll give you a story when I was teaching high school in New York City. So you can imagine 13-year-old New York kids. They're so full of sugar and hyperactivity, attention disorder, you can't believe. So one day I remember I'm having a little trouble controlling them. They're bouncing off the walls. And so I'm at the front of the room and I begin by trying to overpower them. Guys, Guys, calm down. Nothing. Doesn't work. They're like monkeys screaming. So what do? I just stand like this. And these kids are smart. They know that the teacher should be yelling at them, but isn't. Something's wrong. So they start to look in my direction and they see that I'm looking pretty nasty and I'm not saying anything. And then then they sit down. So when you do things that are a little bit off expectation, that are the opposite of what everyone tends to do, that by itself awakens a lot of attention. Which is why pauses are so important. Audiences want breathing space. They want rests. They want pauses. Most speakers don't give them the pauses, so what does the audience do? They make it for themselves and they tune you out. When you have a moment, like a change, some kind of transition, when you have a big result, when you want them to really burn the last 5 words you just said, stop. And then, believe me, if you do that strategically, not all the time, it will have a big effect. It will make them calm, hopefully mitigate overload. It will also calm you because you're helping yourself breathe, which you don't normally do when you're in front of a group. When I was young, back then, this was all you got. You got maybe a podium. Maybe it covered like this. We didn't have laptops in our day. We wrote everything on the board. You might have a microphone, but that was it. Nowadays, you have a podium, you have the symbol of the university, you have the laptop, and you have a microphone. So by the end of it, you're giving your talk like this. Now, for a speaker, this is awesome. Because you're totally protected, right? This is your shield. Yeah, that's why you love it. So, well, what is the problem? How does can the audience make a connection with a pair of talking eyes? Maybe you can. Less of a connection. So alright, let me give it to you another way. How often when you go to a big conference, do you notice that the younger scientists, do like this? What do the plenary speakers often do? The senior speakers. They often come, right? They ask for the clip-on, and then they come out, yeah? And they're like this. I want you to do that. I want you to do that. At the very least, most conferences, that microphone that sits like that, it will turn. Now, of course, if it doesn't work, don't look like an idiot, right? That will work. But you can always easily and comfortably evoke surprise and satisfaction. So most scientists, we can be very easily satisfied when our prediction turns out to be true, because then we feel like we're masters of the universe and we're godlike, and that's great. Most scientists also like being surprised by unexpected things, mysteries, puzzles. I think very few speakers, and this is very simple to create, to set this up. You don't have to be a Hollywood actor, you don't have to set up a murder mystery, no. You simply say, okay, look, the model predicts this, everybody in the field says this, for 20 years, all the evidence points to this. So we said, is that really true? No one has looked directly, is it really true? And we see, yes it is. So now, we've actually validated studies going back to the 1950s, no one knew exactly what the protein was, now we know. Most audiences immediately, they tend to go, ooh,